Welcome to another CEO Wisdom Pod. We have Adrian Rashad Driscoll with us today. He's CEO at Collimation and a bunch of other companies, still running Driscoll Entertainment since 20 plus years. That's a long time. He's a top 100 XR expert. He's a storyteller and a LinkedIn top voice. This pod is presented to you by podpar.com. If you want to start your own podcast, you can do so with AI and generate leads, sponsors, and AdSense money in the meanwhile. So go to podpire.com. We have a free ebook teaching you how to do so. Adrian, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Peace, peace. Thank you, Charles. Happy to be here. Adrian Rashad Driscoll. I'm a storyteller, so I find unique ways to tell impactful stories. Sometimes we use a headset, sometimes we don't. But I really try to get to the core of the narrative because there's a narrative in everything, right? So it's usually just figuring out what that narrative is.
Love it.
And more importantly, to me, is I try to give other people access into immersive media, into XR in general, and connect those dots as well.
Let's start with your story. What's your life story? What brought you to here?
Oh, from a small city called Barstow. And forgive me, I literally one of my close friends from Barstow just passed away yesterday. R.I.P. David. So I'm like emotionally even thinking about it. But you know, grew up in the church, did acting. Moved out to LA on my tax check, $1,400 to start a life. Um, Out of necessity, started Driscoll Entertainment. Fast forward, I started working with this company called Oculus. Fell in love with the technology and the approach and the people. There was really good people over there, and I've been an XR ever since. Ups and downs. Made a lot of money, went homeless. Did all the things that you hear about in the movies, and now I'm here, and now I found a place that I feel at home because I'm able to connect people and let them know more about immersive media and emerging media in general.
In Oculus, are we talking about the Palmer Lucky era Oculus?
Yes. Palmer Lucky in the Hawaiian shirts and the sandals. Yeah, that's when I first met him. He was just as everyone described him, but he's a cool dude though.
Yeah, what lessons did you learn from that guy? He's probably one of the top startup founders in the world.
He's nonchalant, which I love. I love because like he comes as him. He's not trying to put this facade on or have some big chain or have some expensive shirt. He comes as is, which I really do. I really respect that about him for sure.
Right. And tell me about the homelessness period. How did that happen and how did you get back up on your feet? We love these stories here.
Yeah. Wow. I think a lot of my LinkedIn audience to hearing this for the first time is just kind of crazy. But no, I was working for a very large tech company, and I was a contractor. And the problem is the intermediary company had a net 90. So I was getting paid 3 months later. And your landlord doesn't care. He's like, I got money coming. Yeah, I don't care. So you start accumulating fees, and after a while it was too much. And I was making good money, but it was just you're making it too late. So it wasn't sustainable. And I ended up living on Skid Row for a little bit. And I got out the same way I got in. Got my tax check, $1,400, and started all over.
Wow. Nice, man. And you seem to be a man of God as well. Like when does God come into your life? Like pretty much always the back of your mind or uh, during these difficult periods especially?
Always. I mean, I'm not like a fair weather believer. I wholeheartedly believe in God, but I understand it's good. It's not just like it's like they say God is good, right? But this is really how it is. Like it's believing in good, trying to do the good. That brings you closer to God. Doesn't mean you have to go to church. Doesn't mean you have to memorize your Bible. Trying to do what's best for everyone around you is doing God's work. So that's my ministry, is trying to bring other people into opportunity and to be able to connect them in impactful ways. And that's where I get fulfilled. And I think I'm doing God's work.
And what about your dream to become an actor? Like, I think life has interesting turns, right? I wanted to be a lawyer when I was younger, and I ended up being an entrepreneur pretty quick. out of quote unquote necessity. Do you still want to be an actor, and how do you perceive this unfulfilled dream, quote unquote?
It's not unfulfilled. It's just redirected. We have a TV show that we're launching shortly. Don't sweat the technique. So it's actually a big TV show. So I get to be a host, and acting's always in my blood. But this the mission is more important than the vanity of acting. I used to be like, oh my gosh, I'll be a great actor. I'll be a sex symbol. I'll be the next Denzel, and that changed very quickly. Now I'm just like, I want to make impact, and if I'm able to do it on camera, cool. If I'm able to do it off camera, even better.
And a couple of years ago, you met Will Smith. Will's a savage. I love his book. People hate him from the slab, but that guy is like just next level. What lessons did you learn from him?
I think people's perception of you often supersedes what your truth is. People assume because you're on TV that you're not going to be a real person or honest. You forget Will Smith is from Philly. And you can't say certain things to people's wives. I'm not excusing what he did. I'm just saying that people assume that you're going to be immune to everything around you, when in reality, you're more vulnerable to it, because every action that you have has extended consequences beyond, especially if you're Black in entertainment, especially, it's just how it goes.
I think that was during the woke age, right? When people were like all offended by stuff. Nowadays, it's like, oh, he did what was good, right?
No, it's even worse now.
Oh yeah,
It's even worse. Like the illusion that everybody can be included in a way that's not destructive isn't correct, right? Not everybody's going to feel included in every bit, right? The goal is to get as many people included as possible. Right. But if you adjust for everyone, there's a great story called Mexicali Soup. I think everybody should read it or listen to it on YouTube. But it's like you can only adjust for so many before it hurts the greater good. You have to make a general base, a general like foundation. And there's not one. Everybody's like, no, you have to do exactly what I say because I say it. And that's not how it is. That's not how it should be.
And what's your take on the recent DI down funding? I believe that people should have a shot, right? Like I started quite from zero. Obviously, I'm privileged in some ways, but I'm a fucking hustler. You drop me in the middle of the jungle, I'll remake it in record time.
Right.
I don't think everyone's like that genetically or the environment that we're put in. My dad was an entrepreneur. Still is, by the way. So do you think, how much should we help people? Is it until they're successful? And how should we calculate the efforts, the impact of these DI efforts?
That's a great question. I think DEI fundamentally was flawed, because what you have is non-diverse people telling you how to include diverse perspectives, and it feels forced, right? I mean, with what Trump's saying is, oh, well, the plane crashed because, no, stop it. Okay. Like still 80+% of aviation authorities are white. So like, let's not do that. But, it's important. You have to have diverse perspectives. People lean on what we believe. People lean on, the things that we consider to be cool or fun, but they don't, we deserve a seat at the table then, right? Like if you're gonna like us sometimes, then like us, either like us or don't. But I think it's important for inclusivity and equity, but it needs to be reimagined, right? Because its existing state was incorrect. I don't think they should have pulled funding. I think that's crazy, but its existing state definitely needed some tweaks.
Yeah, there needs to be a transition, right? Because some of these are working. If they can prove that they are working, if they have the statistics and the results out of their programs and their efforts, yeah, sure, let's not defund them.
Right.
There needs to be some kind of transition, in my opinion, to fully social startups. They need to make profits, right? They need to be profit oriented. The nonprofit model, I don't think it will scale forever. I think it's like a company that's making money. It's profitable. It's self funded, and it's doing good at the same time. Obviously, that is probably 10x harder, but the harder it is in this capitalistic system, the more competitive you are, the more effective you are, right?
Right.
How can we calculate like all?
Understanding that though, what you just said, because remember, like you can be as competitive as you are, but there are still socioeconomical disadvantages that are present. You can't deny those, right? So the purpose of DEI is really to kind of even the playing field, not to say that, hey, you're not qualified, you should get this job. No, 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 no. You are qualified, right? You should get this job and understand that you may not have gotten the job simply because of your name on a piece of paper, simply because of your, your background, or because you do click, oh, I am African American, or I am of Hispanic descent. Those things are what's deterring employers from hiring. Not to say that if you're just as qualified, you shouldn't get the job. No, that's the difference. It's not a giveaway. It's just saying, hey, look, I earned this. Let me in too.
Yeah, and ultimately, I mean, I'm a futurist, you're too, right? Like you're into VR
Absolutely.
and all. Like we should have something that would calculate the full life story of someone, whether they're white, black. I mean, they might have been raped, they might have had super tough childhoods, for example,
Sure.
and that should be accounted for. It's like, oh, that person got that. Maybe more mentorship to that person, right? Like that would also be like more effective, in my opinion. Like give startup mentors to these organizations to teach entrepreneurship and how to be profitable, rather than giving them the money. Like teach a man to fish, sort of
Sure.
analogy. And calculating these things is always hard. I think most nonprofits and government systems, they're so archaic, they don't even calculate things, or they use like silly accountings, and at the end of the day we don't even know if the key results were met. And that's like a multi-decades revolution that we need, like in GovTech, right?
Right.
Talking about VR, I mean, Oculus was quite something. They got acquired by Facebook slash Meta. Zuckerberg was super bullish on it. In my opinion, didn't pan out. AI is way more interesting and profitable nowadays. Apple got with the Apple One, I believe it's called, or whatever, the Apple headset.
Division Pro. Yeah.
Yeah, the Vision Pro. Like, are people still bullish about VR and XR? Like, what's happening in that domain?
You have to get past the point where you can, trim the fat. And right now, I mean, 2016, there was a huge spike, right? And studios were jumping in, but everyone was doing it in a gimmicky way. It's not about the technology. Technology doesn't matter, right? Not to people. Technology is only, people only care about what you're getting from the technology, right? So if I tell you to put on a headset, but I haven't given you the value of putting on the headset, you're not going to do it. Then when you put it on and I give you a negative experience, you're going to stray away from it. That's what's happened thus far. We need more storytellers in tech. If you have tech people trying to tell stories, that's a commercial. If you have storytellers trying to use tech, then you have a narrative, and that's what's going to sell this tech. But it hasn't changed. I mean, people are just like squirrel. What's the new shiny thing? And AI is incredible, but it's the new shiny thing.
And do you still believe in this version of, well, the UX case for VR? Do you still feel, I mean, eventually it's going to be AR, right? But it seems that the leap is just gigantic. It's just like people trying to build robots nowadays. Obviously, it's an upcoming revolution. And obviously, I believe of putting glasses and seeing shit pop up. Oh, this tree was living for 70 years, like mixed with AI.
Mhm.
And oh, this guy here is probably making 80,000 a year. Oh, this guy here is struggling because his wife, whatever. I would love to see that version of reality, right? But how far are we away from that technology wise? And who's gonna build that thing? Is it gonna be slow moving Apple, or OpenAI acquiring Microsoft? Like who's going to be the leader of that revolution?
I mean, that's a great question. If I had a crystal ball, then I'd probably use it to win the lotto a couple times. But I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. What I do know is ultimately VR. I think the biggest drawback was high processing power. you're required to either have a heavy headset, an expensive computer, or some of this. You have web GPU coming out and it's strong. You have Gaussian splatting, even nerves, and looking at some of the ways to get closer to full fidelity and photorealism, that's going to drive a lot of people to XR, whether augmented, virtual, or mixed reality. It's going to drive a lot of people. And as long as storytellers keep presenting that, it's just going to be another tool, but it's not going to change. It's not going to change. You're not going to not go to movies because you have a headset. No, 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 no. You're going to have that as another option. You're not going to stop going to concerts, considering what Collimation does. You're going to have that as an additional option. And that's where the value comes in. Because I'm not telling you how to consume content anymore. You're choosing how to consume it.
I think I'd stop going to the movies though. If I could learn through XR and AI the stories of every people I see in the streets or this house, or even if I could see what happened on the terrain I'm sitting in, if there was a war or if something, I think I would just not go out anywhere. I would just like sit around here and watch stories about what happened.
Right.
And then there would be a privacy concern to that. Oh, can we learn about the story of that person? But I think if AGI is a thing, it could actually estimate the story of that person without like stealing any data.
I mean, the problem with AI and AGI actually scares me. AI doesn't though. But like, there's still biases. Who's programming this, right? We go back to the DEI conversation. You want to have, what is the history of different cultural groups in America, right? Who is writing that history, right? And that's the thing. And people don't understand the difference between equity and equality. Equity is saying, or equality seems like, hey, look, I give you a bowl of rice and chopsticks. That's fair, right? Not really, because some people need a fork. Equity is making sure that you have the right tools to consume the way you need to consume, right? Those things need to be addressed far before we ever consider AGI having, a profiling mechanism, or it's going to be just as corrupt as the one that exists now.
And do you feel that the data out there is biased? For example, if we take Black history, right? Isn't most Black history data on the web from Black people and their ancestors right now?
No, there's no. Slavery wasn't documented well, right? So our history was stripped from us, right? So enslaved people don't know where they come from necessarily, but we were brought here, even when slavery ended, where do you go? What do? You have no resources. Yeah, you're in a place that is not designed for you. So you can't assume that the documentation, what actually comes from us, right? Because a lot of times we're not even in the writer's room.
Yeah.
How do I write the story if I'm not in the room to tell it?
Yeah,
And if I have no ancestors passing down these stories, there's not a way to.
Yeah, that history is written by those that one had the upper hand, right? Whether it was fair or not. So, do you think an AGI could sort of go back in time and fetch the real data, like biochemically?
I mean, no, but maybe. I don't know. Time
I think
machine would be
so.
great. I
AGI is
feel,
gonna crack
yeah,
that space time
maybe.
for sure. Yeah, I feel, yeah. I mean, there's some vestige, like we say in French, of history, right? Um, slaves that have written journals, for example. We have like some bits of it, right? That we can make some estimations, but yeah, you're making me think here because I thought the data was there was some accurate data with like all the efforts that have been put in diversity. So according to you, there's no ways we can currently go back and fetch like real data about that and scale AI in the right direction.
No,
And
you
okay,
can, but it's not going to be conclusive. I mean, like, you get bits and pieces, and then it goes back to storytelling, you know. But the griots here don't have the history and the full chain. Like, we're just now learning about Tulsa. Are you kidding me? We're just now learning about red summer cities. Like, Black history is American history, but these are the pages that have been, omitted from a lot of it. So what we think we know, it goes way, way deeper for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, it's making me think. Yeah, and do you feel that, for example, the Holocaust is well documented or better documented, or there's also like there's a clear lack of data that's been erased from there? Because it would be a big problem if AI would just scale on this poor data, quote unquote.
I mean, I'm far from an expert in most things. I don't know. I would assume that most huge tragedies, and I could call them way, way worse, but we'll call them tragedies for the sake of this podcast. I would assume that there's holes. There's holes, there's missing information, there's stories that are just dying to be told that may never see the light of day. And whether that was intentional, whether that was consequential, whatever that was, they do exist, I feel.
Right. And I spoke with a couple of CEOs from data archive organisms, one of which was, I believe, the Kashmir annexation in India, which is quite interesting in 1949.
Mhm.
Uh, Post-war, just another like imperialist mistake, right? Like Western civs have fucked up a lot of things around the planet Earth, and that one was like not well documented. So the lady actually like started interviewing people and picking up sources of data. So I'll definitely scan that again and see, because yeah, you're making me conscious of the data problem here. Do you feel that when you're interviewing people about stories, it's like factual data and scalable data, or it's mostly like emotional data and people forget and invent stuff all the time?
Well, I mean, emotions are factual. This is the thing. Like, most of life is so subjective. It's like, what happened to you? Oh, I feel this happened, or I feel, or someone said this happened, or that's how they received it, right? Like, offense is taken, right? So whatever offends you, it's taken. Like, I can call you an apple, and I can call someone else an apple, and maybe they get offended by that word, right? So is a word offensive? No, it's the inflection, it's how you took it, the interpretation of it, right? So I can't say that emotional data isn't factual. However, those facts can be skewed in any direction. Everyone is going to feel like their family member is in the right most of the time, even if they've done something wrong. I'm sure Hitler had people that spoke very highly of him, but
Oh,
it doesn't
still,
mean that he's a good, what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. So, like,
most of German population.
so you see what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's not, I don't think there's such a separation, but I think the only way to get there and to understand it is to have conversations. But we don't have these conversations because they're uncomfortable. And if
And
that's your deterrent, then you'll never get to where we need to be.
yeah, obviously, people need to know how to even have debates, right? Like having a debate is not like a political candidate debate in which
Right.
you try to plant the other guy down below you and win lose type of debate. It's
Right.
growing neuron cells. I feel most people would greatly benefit from doing that. But coming back to um, what you were saying, do you feel that democracy can still serve us, or some nodes in the system have higher weights and should be taken with taken more seriously or given more percentage of truthfulness than others, aka experts?
I think most experts aren't experts, is the truth, right? And I think there's so much. I mean, that's a super loaded question. you know, I think our approach needs to be one of empathy, one of understanding, and one with a true desire to learn. Right now, our approach is having a desire to talk. You're just racing to your next time to talk, right? Nothing can change or improve if that's your mindset. If your mindset is I want to learn because I don't know, I'm stupid, I'm dumb about a lot of things. Most things I don't know anything about. So how would I ever have a right to speak on that? You know, right? I don't know about A, B, and C. I know about D, E, and F. So if I'm talking about DEF, cool. A, B, and C, I want to learn. I shouldn't be talking as much. That's how it should be, in my opinion.
Yeah, like that. Dude, I just realized we are 5 minutes on time. Where can we find out more about you, Adrian?
Yeah, all links. I'm pretty open book, but yeah, Adrian Rashad Driscoll. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. Instagram, Adrian Rashad Driscoll. Yeah, all roads lead to Narnia.